Hello everybody, Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk a little bit about expectations and outcomes. And what got me going on this was a trend that's going on in churches these days, especially Catholic churches. And I got no less than 3 inquiries on this particular topic in the last 2 weeks of people telling me about how things are changing in their sanctuaries, in their Catholic churches, and they feel very, very concerned about it. And they want to know what I thought about it. And so this is kind of my response. So as a lot of you may or may not know, I was a professional auctioneer for many years in the Chicagoland area. I did estate sales and I did bankruptcy liquidations for businesses and individuals that were going through the bankruptcy crisis in the 1990s. And even some into the 2000s, but it sort of peeled off there in the 1990s. But one of the things I've always tried to get across to younger people, and one of my prepared speeches I would give to Rotary clubs or other civic clubs and things like that, if they asked me to come in and speak, I would offer a topic on you don't have to spend a lot of money to live well. And what I was getting at is if you were to buy your household goods, your furniture, other appliances and things like that, if you could buy them at an auction where something's been gently used or is of higher quality, it would make sense to go to the auction and buy your items rather than to the large department stores where you'd be paying full price plus tax going forward, and probably getting a lower quality item in the process. So many times older items are better made. Furniture, for instance, dovetail joints on a set of dresser drawers, as opposed to something just being stapled and glued like you get with a lot of your IKEA type stuff. Old furniture is much better quality across the board. There's no doubt about that. For the money you would spend at an auction for a complete bedroom set might be $350 to $600 versus $4,000 to $5,000 in a store. And the quality is going to be much better. The styling might be entirely different, but this is something you can adjust to for your budget and learn to live with it if it's not exactly what you wanted. But it might be the serviceable thing you need for budgetary situations in your family. It's a better choice. Let me give you a case in point. Here are 2 butter knives. This one was probably made in 2020. It's basic stainless steel, and when I opened the package on it, it's already got a pit mark where the finish has already started to give way on it. So this is from 2020. It was probably a set of knives that were probably in the $60 to $80 range out of a Bed Bath & Beyond or any other department store of your choice. So this was what they got for that. They probably spent $5 to $10 per knife for what they got out of this box. This particular knife was made sometime around 1925 to 1935, I would guess. It's got beautiful detailing on the hub of the knife. This is actually a silver-plated knife, and this came with a whole set and a William Rogers case when I bought this at an auction, and this came full service for $12, along with all of the serving items, the tongs, things like that. Everything was impeccable in a beautiful case. And I paid all of $5 for the entire set of silver-plated silverware. Big difference in quality. This one, the older one, is basically untarnished. It does need polishing because it is silver plate, so there is going to be some maintenance with that. But it's really pretty easy to take care of these if you just wipe them down once a year and then put them back in their case or after using. Pretty easy. This one over here, the lower quality one, this is one if I was to need a a screwdriver in a pinch, I'd probably grab this one out of the door because it's cheap, it's replaceable, it's dispensable. This is not much of quality at all. The weight of it, this is probably even smaller. It's about twice the weight of this one. So you feel this luxury in your hand when you're holding the older one, the better quality, versus the newer one. So that's just one example of what goes on in the consumer market and what has been going on. It affects your appliances across the board. People, when they would come to my house, they would exclaim about how wonderful the coffee tastes and that I make great coffee. And I said, well, I didn't make the coffee maker did. And so I'd show them the actual percolator pot that was making this coffee that they were happy about. And they were just, amazed at how good this coffee tasted. And they said, well, we use a drip coffee maker. I said, well, this kind of is a drip coffee maker too. It just recirculates it a few times for the percolating process. But this is what gives you the deeper taste of the coffee with using less actual coffee for your pot of coffee. It's coming back through and it's rinsing those grounds several times in the process rather than just once. So you get a deeper tasting, better rounded coffee with the old percolators than you do with the new drip models. So I bought my not drip models, but my percolator coffee makers at the auctions for roughly $1 to $2 a piece. Nobody wants them because nobody knows how to use them. Nobody knows what is available to them with the taste quality that's going to come their way. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to live well. So on that coffee maker, buying it for a few dollars for the coffee maker versus $80 to $100 for a new coffee maker that's only going to last you possibly a couple of years these days. The choice is yours to make. I'm just saying there's an option available to you. You don't have to take what they give you. So this all leads to what's been going on in our churches and other places of public services going on. When the appliances would get to be too cheap or the product that was being offered by the company got to be so subpar that the consumer didn't like it anymore, they would revolt by not buying that product. And they would just say, not for me, thank you, I'm going to take the other one. This happened with when Coca-Cola tried to bring out new Coke. It was exciting for a number of people. They tried it, but they all kind of go, no thanks. I think I'll go back to the old Coke. And so they didn't buy the new Coke. They went for the old Coke instead. And the company got a real timely message. So it wasn't very long before Coca-Cola brought back old Coke. And they just had new Coke as an option. And I don't know how sales are going between the two, but I would imagine that old Coke is probably still outselling new Coke. So Coca-Cola went through this. I think Frigidaire went through this with some of their appliances. Samsung, I know, went through it with early releases of some of their television sets that people just said, no, not for me. They bought something else, and that made them change what they were doing and go back to quality as their focus. So now we've got the Catholic Church, and I'm going to talk about this because this is the inquiries I got the last couple of weeks. What is going on right now in the Catholic Church in North America is the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops has decided that it's time to basically modernize the process of going to church in a Catholic church, and especially communion and people going to communion. So this is all in an attempt to try to unify everything, make everything, what is this thing? Oh, they want to call it uniformity. So the church is trying to lower the bar on these practices and these old traditions that we've had in the Catholic Church. Among them, women, if they choose to cover their head with a veil or some sort of head covering, It used to be that previous to World War II, women didn't really wear veils as much because veils were a fairly costly item to make and to sell. And you may have had some of the women from European countries that had this practice with them to wear the veil. But previous to 1940-ish, according to my mother, women wore hats. They didn't wear veils. Veils became popular after World War II, after some of the GIs were coming back from Europe and having seen women over there wearing veils traditionally. The men thought it was a good practice. And so they came back to the United States and told their women about it. And then veils became very popular after World War II. And so women were carrying these veils in a little purse pocket with their rosary that they carried with them, and you'd be seeing them dipping into this as they're entering into out of their little purse pocket type of thing and get it on and walk on in. And so I remember this as a young child as being the practice of watching the women walk in from their cars into the church, putting their veils on, and rather than a hat. So hats went out of fashion, veils came in, and the women seemed to like that. But now we've got this USCCB is deciding that we need uniformity because there's too much confusion, apparently, that they see amongst the faithful. So they've eliminated the communion rails in most churches, and now they want to take out the pray-dos, which are the individual kneelers, that many times that if they took out the communion rail, in some churches they would put a pray-do up near where communion is being distributed so that an individual could come up, and if they elected to, they could kneel to receive the body of Christ on their tongue. Well, apparently that was too much for a lot of people, priests and other bishops or whatnot. So what they're doing is they're removing that now too. And so they just want people to stand and receive communion standing. They're allowed to, if they want to, they're asking them to bow instead and not kneel. They're allowed to still kneel if they want to for now, but they're on their own, and they're trying to go against that at every time, saying you're inconveniencing the people behind you. So what happens when you lower the quality and the consumer expectation of a consumer product, like we talked about with the Coca-Cola or even the knives, things like that? When you lower the expectation, there becomes a causal lowering of outcome with the user or the recipient of whatever the service is or the product is that you're trying to get them to use and buy. So they get a lower expectation going in, so they're not expecting as much out of the experience, so they're willing to say, well, I'll take less because that's what's available, so I'll take that, and then they move on. That's okay if you're talking about knives and forks and spoons. It's not so okay if you want to try to put in, rather than a solid knife, bring in a plastic knife. It's not the same if you want to have a solid sacrament going on in the church and then you want to bring in a lower quality experience, because all you're doing is moving things more towards what the 40% of our priests already feel, that there isn't any real true presence in the Eucharist. So this just moves the celebration and the actual activity of receiving Jesus in the Eucharist to a lower level of expectation. And so eventually you might as well get your communion delivered to you by Amazon. This is kind of where it's going to. There's not going to be as much. I know that's dramatic, but in the end, a lot of people, if they say, well, it's just a symbol, it's really not Jesus, then you're moving the slippery slope further down. And this is not going to have a good outcome coming forward. So when people were given the new Coke and they didn't like it, they didn't buy it. Same thing goes on here. If the churches want to eliminate the depth and the solemnity of the process, you can fire back by saying, well, it's not as valuable to me anymore. So you've devalued it in my experience and my expectation. So where I used to be giving you so much a week, now I can only give you this much a week because you've lowered the quality. So my experience is down. So I'm only willing to pay this much. So this is all leading to what I would say is we need to impact this new trend by answering back with the $1 donation. Put $1 in the collection plate until these places get the message. It's kind of like playing a game of chicken with your local parish. Now, if you don't have a school or anything like that to help fund, this is where this can work. If it's a standalone church with nothing else attached to it, the $1 donation is the way to go. Wait until the priest or whoever asks you about it, and then tell them, I don't approve of this. This is what it's worth to me. If they want to ban you from the church, well, then they're going to be in trouble for that then too. There's nothing wrong with giving just a simple dollar because you're covering the costs of the services that they're providing to you. There's no skimping that you're doing right there. Anything above that is your own generosity. If you have a school or another project with the church that's going on and you want to see that continue to be funded, you can write a check directly to one of the suppliers. I remember back in the 1970s, there was a little bit of a pushback that was happening with these guitar masses and stuff like that. People didn't like that so much. They thought that was a slippery slope. And so what they did at that time was a lot of the big donors at the parish, instead of writing a check to the parish, what they did was they wrote a check on behalf of the parish to the utility companies, or they wrote a check to the supplier of bricks or whatever that they were using for a building project that may have been going on. They sent the money directly, so it helped pay down the church's expense, and they got receipts for it and all like that. But this is how they dealt with that, so they made sure the money was going to what they wanted it to go to and not what some of these progressive priests were using the money for to fund their own little pet projects off to the side and things like that. So it's not wrong to do. It's probably time to think about these things. This is up to you. I don't have a dog in that fight. But if you want to get a response, you got to change your behavior to get them to change theirs. So this is, I think, a line in the sand that people need to think about if you really believe in the true presence of the Eucharist. If you don't, and you're looking to just be a satisfied Protestant in your belief system, that's fine too. You know, you don't have to believe everything that is offered. So, but you do need to be responsible for the choices that you make. So, like is said in the big boy world, play certain games, win certain prizes. In the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.